Okay, so let's get right into it. There's this incredibly dense 165-page paper making the rounds in Silicon Valley right now, and you really need to know what's in it. It's called Situational Awareness, and it's written by a guy named Leopold Aschenbrenner. Now, he's not just some random analyst. He was a core member of OpenAI's super alignment team. You know, the team trying to make sure future AI doesn't go rogue. That is, until he was fired, supposedly for raising the alarm about how bad their security was. So this paper, it's not just theory. It's a warning shot from someone who's been on the inside. He's basically saying the world is sleepwalking into the most critical decade in human history. Let's break down why.
The paper kicks off with this line right here, and it really sets the tone. This isn't some dry academic paper. It's a dispatch from the absolute epicenter of the AI boom. He's making a bold claim from the jump. What feels like science fiction to most of us is already becoming reality in the boardrooms and labs of a few key companies.
And here it is, the central idea of the whole thing. Aschenbrenner believes that while the rest of the world is busy debating chatbots, there's this tiny group of insiders who truly get the exponential curve we're on. They see that the race to build artificial general intelligence, or AGI, isn't some far-off dream. No, it's happening right now, and the consequences are just staggering.
So how does he actually make this case? I mean, it's a huge claim, right? Well, it all boils down to a really simple but powerful idea he calls counting the ohms. This is the engine behind his entire argument for why the timeline to AGI is way, way shorter than most people are ready to believe.
Before we go any further, we have to define this one crucial term. An OM is an order of magnitude. In simple terms, it's a 10x jump in power or scale. This is the basic unit of progress in AI. We're not talking about small, little steps here. We're talking massive, game-changing leaps. Understanding this is absolutely key to getting what the paper is talking about.
And here's the bombshell claim that this framework leads to. Not AGI in 2040 or 2050, but AGI by 2027. He argues this isn't some wild guess. It's just what the trend line points to if you follow the math and just count these 10x leaps in capability.
To really appreciate the next jump, you have to look at the last one. And this comparison just frames it perfectly. In only 4 years, we went from GPT-2, which he calls a preschooler, barely able to string words together, to GPT-4, which is like a smart high schooler who can ace advanced exams and write complex code. Think about that. That wasn't a small improvement. It was a total transformation.
So what drove that incredible leap? It wasn't magic. It comes down to 3 things you can pretty much rely on. First, just raw compute. We're talking trillions of dollars being poured into gigantic server farms. Second, smarter algorithms that squeeze more power out of every chip. And third, something he calls unhobbling. These are simple-sounding tweaks that suddenly unlock the AI's hidden smarts, turning it from a simple text generator into something that can actually reason.
All right, now let's actually look at the numbers, because this is where the argument gets really hard to ignore. The paper crunches the numbers and says that the jump from GPT-2 to GPT-4 was powered by about 4.5 to 6 orders of magnitude. That's a mind-bending, million-fold increase in what he calls effective compute. And here's the kicker. The projection for the next 4 years, up to 2027, points to a jump of almost the exact same size. So we should be expecting another leap just as big as the one that took us from that preschooler to the high schooler.
But here's the thing. Reaching human-level AGI, that's not the finish line. According to this paper, it's actually the starting gun for something much, much faster and way more consequential. It's called the intelligence explosion.
The logic here is actually pretty simple. The moment you have an AI that's as smart as a brilliant AI researcher, what do you do with it? Well, you put it to work doing AI research. And that's when you kick off this insane feedback loop where smarter AI builds even smarter AI and progress just goes vertical.
And the scale of this is just mind-boggling. We're not talking about having just one AI researcher. We'll have the computing power to run an entire army of millions of them, all working 24/7. This AI workforce could cram a decade of human progress into a single year, triggering another gigantic 5-ohm leap in a fraction of the time.
And he uses this incredible analogy to make the point crystal clear. AGI, he says, is like the first atomic bomb. A terrifyingly powerful version of existing technology. But the superintelligence that comes right after, that's the H-bomb, the super. It's 1,000 times more powerful, a completely different category of power that changes the entire world.
Okay, so what does all this actually mean for us in the real world? This isn't just some fun thought experiment.
The paper makes it very clear that this race has enormous physical, economic, and geopolitical consequences that we are just not ready for. So first, you have to forget this idea of AI as just being code floating around in the cloud. This is a massive industrial project. We're talking about a global scramble for energy, for data centers, for chips, for raw materials, all on a scale that people are comparing to a wartime mobilization.
Just to give you a sense of the scale, the rumored price tag for a single next-gen AI training cluster, planned for around 2028, is over $100 billion. That's one computer cluster that costs more than the entire International Space Station.
And that single cluster? It would need about 10 gigawatts of power to run. For perspective, that's roughly the electricity consumption of the entire state of Washington for one computer.
And it gets crazier. The paper projects that by 2030, a single trillion-dollar cluster would demand over 20% of the total electricity production of the United States. The physical scale of this thing is just almost impossible to wrap your head around.
And of course, the stakes here just could not be higher. Superintelligence isn't just a cool tech product. It's a weapon that could give one country a decisive military edge over all others. The paper argues that the free world simply cannot afford to lose this race. And yet, he warns that security at the top AI labs today is so bad he calls it Swiss cheese, basically handing our most important secrets to our adversaries.
So all of this, the speed, the scale, the danger, it all points to a dramatic and, in the paper's view, a totally inevitable conclusion about how governments are going to react once they finally wake up and gain situational awareness. So you have to ask the question, can we really trust a handful of tech companies, no matter how well-intentioned they are, to manage the birth of a technology this powerful and this dangerous? The paper's answer is a clear and resounding no. Instead, it predicts the rise of what he calls the project, a national government-led effort, just like the Manhattan Project that built the atomic bomb. It would be designed to take control, centralize, and secure the development of superintelligence as a matter of absolute national survival.
And the reasoning is pretty straightforward. Superintelligence is a weapon of unprecedented power. You need government-level capabilities to secure it from spies. The safety risks are literally existential. And ultimately, you can't have a tech CEO with their finger on a button that's more powerful than the nuclear codes. The national security state, he argues, will have no choice but to step in.
And the paper ends with this one haunting line, which is a pretty clear reference to Los Alamos, where the Manhattan Project was based. It leaves us with this stark picture of the future, a world where the race for AGI has moved out of Silicon Valley and into secure, secret government sites in the desert, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. It's a pretty sobering thought to end on, and it kind of forces you to ask, what if he's right?